Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. President Trump signed into law new economic sanctions against Russia this week for attempted meddling in the U.S. election, but not without expressing reservations about the sanctions themselves. In a statement to lawmakers, the president said that while he favors tough measures to punish and deter aggressive and destabilizing behavior by Iran, North Korea, and Russia, this legislation is significantly flawed. The president further suggested that the bill was unconstitutional because it limits his power to lift penalties. The new law, passed overwhelmingly by Congress last week, is aimed at a range of Russian industries at a time when Russia's economy is still weak from U.S.-imposed sanctions following its annexation of Crimea. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev condemned the sanctions as a full-scale trade war. World leaders are recalibrating their policy with regard to North Korea after the communist nation's latest escalation of its ballistic missile program. On Monday, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he and President Trump have agreed to take further action against North Korea and will take all measures necessary to protect Japan. The U.S. also conducted bomber exercises and with South Korea conducted its own missile defense tests. Analysis of the North Korean missile launch this past week concluded that most of the U.S. is now within range of a North Korean missile strike. Meanwhile, ISIS has claimed responsibility for deadly attacks in Afghanistan. On Tuesday, the group targeted a Shia mosque in western Afghanistan near the Iranian border, killing 29 and injuring more than 60 others. Shias, a minority of around 3 million in overwhelmingly Sunni Afghanistan, have been targeted by ISIS jihadists over the last year. They accuse police and troops of failing to protect them. And the Venezuelan government is coming under scrutiny after Sunday's contentious and highly irregular election. Venezuela voted for the creation of a new constituent assembly, which would give President Nicolas Maduro increasing control over a divided and chaotic country. The National Electoral Council reported that more than 8 million Venezuelans cast ballots for delegates to a government-backed, all-powerful assembly with the powers to rewrite the Constitution and override any other branch of government. The president of Venezuela's opposition-controlled National Assembly said the legislature could call for an investigation into claims that the official election turnout was inflated by at least 1 million votes. Venezuela's National Electoral Council on Wednesday dismissed claims that official voter turnout numbers were manipulated. Since the vote, Maduro's government has continued to arrest representatives of the country's opposition. Venezuela's bishops have called Sunday's election illegal, joining many countries, including the U.S., that refuse to acknowledge it. Though through their Twitter account, the bishops called on the Virgin Mary to free the country from, quote, the claws of communism and socialism. The Trump administration hit Maduro with financial sanctions, which freeze any assets he may have in U.S. jurisdictions and bar Americans from doing business with him. And the Primate of Canada says he will allow funerals for Catholics who choose assisted suicide. Quebec City's Cardinal Archbishop Gerald Lacroix told America Magazine that he might deny a Catholic funeral for a public advocate of euthanasia, but reasoned that an elderly person might choose it in a moment of weakness or under pressure from others. Cardinal Lacroix noted that the elderly, frail, and infirm are bombarded with messages that ending their life is preferable to being alone or a burden or in pain. Since euthanasia was legalized in Canada in June of 2016, the bishops there have been split on the matter. The bishops of Atlantic Canada issued guidelines last year that refer to Pope Francis's call for accompaniment. It allowed priests to administer anointing of the sick, confession, Holy Communion, and funerals to euthanasia seekers. By contrast, the bishops of Alberta and the Northwest Territories issued a 34-page statement noting that euthanasia is an objective mortal sin, and priests may be required to deny the sacraments or a church burial to those who seek it. And some very sad news. Dolores Marsalis, the matriarch of one of New Orleans' most influential musical families, was laid to rest this week at Mater Dolorosa Catholic Church in her hometown. Mrs. Marsalis died on July 18th after battling pancreatic cancer. She was 80. A New Orleans native, Dolores was the wife of jazz piano legend Ellis Marsalis and mother of 6 sons, 4 of whom are themselves jazz greats: Branford, Wynton, Delphio, and Jason. As you can see, her sons led the traditional first and second line, honoring their beloved mother. There's nothing quite like a New Orleans second line to celebrate your final reward. Our prayers go out to the entire Marsalis family. May Dolores Marsalis rest in peace.